Which Arizona Wildcats football and basketball players are most likely to be all Big 12 and push for conference and national awards?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we got a lot to get to this show. We are going to talk Arizona football, Arizona basketball, and we're going to talk the Big 12 and possibly some national awards and where everything does fit in. But first, let's talk about Arizona football in the Big 12. I am very excited about Arizona football going off to the Big 12. I think that it is going to be a nice fit for everybody. First of all, I think the Big 12 is underrated, big picture, because I do think that, people are like, the SEC and the Big 10 to the Big 10. But with the Big 12, you're going to have probably 5 teams in the top 25. This is going to be a team this is going to be a conference that is loaded, and there's going to be a lot of really good teams, and I think Arizona is going to have a very good chance to compete for a champion or for a conference championship from day one. Now, we are going to talk about some of the players on the Arizona Wildcats football and basketball team and where they can really stack up in things when it comes to conference awards and whatnot. Now, the first one we obviously got to talk about is the most important position on the field, and that is the quarterback. Let's start with Noah Fafita. All right, Noah Fafita is that dude, as the kids would say. If Arizona had started him all of last year, you're probably looking at a team that wins 11, maybe 12 games. That's how good he is. They're not losing to Mississippi State, and they probably would get one of those SC or Washington games just because he would have some more experience in there. But either way, it's going to be his team, and you can just tell everything about him is awesome. Now, listen, he's 5'7", I get that, but if he was 6 foot, he'd be in the NFL in a year, and he'd be a top 3 pick in the draft. But everything that he does is absolutely fantastic, and I think the thing that you really like about him is the way that he is able to navigate the pocket, the way that he is able to maneuver around and make big passes and make huge passes, and that's something that he's been able to do pretty much his entire career. The thing about him, too, is that he doesn't, if you're open, he's going to get you the ball. This isn't a favoritism thing or where, when in doubt, I'm just going to chuck it deep. He's going to look to get you the ball, and he has a long history and a long track record of doing just that. That is why he is really good at what he does. And it also does help that he's got a very good rapport with the people that are already on this roster. You look at T-Mac, who we're obviously going to get to in a second, but T-Mac is, T-Mac's his guy. T-Mac, they've been boys for a long time. They're kind of on that subliminal wavelength with each other. They know exactly where the other one is going to be, and that is obviously a very good thing. Watching them, you can just tell that both these dudes, they just kind of get it. I look for Noah Fafita to have a monster season. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes for over 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns, maybe 5 or 6 picks. I don't know. And the thing about him that's really impressive, probably going to complete about 70% of his passes. Again, just a magical football player, and what Arizona needed at the right time. Again, this guy could have pretty much gone anywhere he wanted, but he decided to stay here and back the A, and Arizona is much, much better for it. Again, a huge, and again, you look at all the quarterbacks in the conference, obviously, you got Jalen Daniels from Kansas, you've got Shedeur Sanders, you've got Avery Johnson, who everybody likes. Cam Rising, theoretically, is going to be back. I'll take Noah over all of them. I think Noah is going to be better than all of them. I think Noah is better than all of them. And when the chips are down, when the game is on the line, I am taking Noah Fafita every single day of the week. I think he's going to be the best. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the conference, and I think he's going to be one of the handful of best ones in the entire country. Now, another one to certainly keep an eye on is T-Mac, who we just brought up. T-Mac's the best player in the Big 12, period, point blank. I guess maybe you could make a case for Travis Hunter, being that he plays both ways. But with T-Mac kind of abused Travis Hunter at times last year, and T-Mac is just that guy. I believe T-Mac is the best wide receiver in the entire country. Now, again, he's got a foot injury, but they expect him to be totally fine by the time camp starts, as long as he's totally good and ready to go. T-Mac obviously is a problem. With the T-Mac also, it's just kind of the proverbial catch radius is absolutely insane for him. If you just throw the ball anywhere near him, he's most likely going to be able to get it. His hands are something that are next level. And again, there's no disrespect to anybody else, but he is absolutely amazing. And he's a player that I think can be a number one wide receiver, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes down as being one of the 2 or 3 best U of A pros of all time. I think the next step for him, and again, this could be mitigated a little bit, is because he needs to continue to continue to get faster, work on the acceleration, but already had the procedure done, and I think you're hoping that he should be good to go. But again, he's probably the best player in the Big 12. He's an easy one to pencil in on the All Big 12 team. He's also a player that if he's healthy, he's an easy one to put in there as a first-team All-American. One of the highest profile players to ever come to the U of A, and he's going to leave here as is the best wide receiver in school history. He, like I said, he's got everything that you need to be an all-pro wide receiver, and I think you're going to see that. He's also a tremendous kid. He's got a lot of character. He never wanted to leave the U of A, and he didn't leave the U of A. Could have gotten a lot more money doing something else, going somewhere else, and he decided he was not going to do that. He wanted to stay here and back the A. Again, that's an easy all-conference choice. Now, if you're asking me who the conference player of the year would be, I think it's still more likely to be Noah, just because at a quarterback position, you're going to put up bigger numbers. The eyes are obviously on you. I also think that he's going to spread the ball around a little bit more. I think you've got some different players that you can go with. But T-Mac, no brainer. And like I said, I think he's probably the best player in the entire Big 12. He's that dude. Now, let's talk a little bit about Jonas Savaiinaea. All right, Jonas Savaiinaea is he's going to be a first-round pick. It's weird talking about all these guys at Arizona that are going to be first-round picks, but he's going to be a first-round pick. He came here, and he looked different than about any lineman that I've ever seen come to the U of A. He was 6'3", 330 pounds, and he held it incredibly well. That was what was incredibly impressive. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't necessarily have a six-pack, but you can see ab muscles. You generally don't see those from players that are that big. He's like I said, he's a big-time football player. And he's going to be the tackle this year. You're hoping that, I think at left tackle, that he can be, what Jordan Morgan was this past year, another first-round pick. If he can be that, then Arizona's in really, really good shape. He's excelled at guard. He's excelled at tackle. And this will probably be his last year before he heads off to the NFL. But again, Jonas Savaiinaea is one of those different dudes. You just look at it and you're like, man, he looks totally different than anybody out there. He's what a lineman at Georgia or Alabama looks like. Again, he's that guy. And another player, I don't think that he's going to be all conference, but I think he's going to be in the discussion, and I think that he's someone to certainly keep an eye on, is Wendell Moy. Wendell Moy, I think, is the second best lineman on the team. He is another really good get by Jed Fish. He can move. He's a real kind of a road grader. He's going to play in the NFL as well. It'll probably be hard to get all these guys onto the all-conference team, but if there is somebody that's kind of a dark horse, I think it's going to be Wendell Moy. Again, probably a year or two away from playing in the NFL. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to go off to Washington, but he said, I will not do that. And he did not do that. And we are much, much better for it. But Moy and Jonas Savaiinaea, both big-time prospects, and big-time prospects that I think, if you're an Arizona fan, you got to be pretty excited about the possibilities of both of them, because this could be their last year. We will find out what exactly the case is with both. But Jonas Savaiinaea, barring injury, I think is a lock, and Wendell Moy, I think, is a very good possibility as a dark horse. Now, one thing that is not a dark horse is FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel. All right, the NBA Finals are here. No better place to bet on them than at FanDuel, where your money is good. Check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Another one of these ones where you will thank me later. As always, FanDuel is where it's at. All kinds of really, really good stuff. And I think what's really great about FanDuel, and what I think so many people like about FanDuel, is that you can bet before the game, during the game, and your money's going to be good. You can bet futures. Everything is reliable. Check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit on the defensive side, who we could see as those all-conference players on the defensive side. First one is very, very easy. It's Jacob Manu. Jacob Manu is one of the handful of best linebackers in the country. We already know this. He put up monster stats this past season. Lots of over 100 tackles, 6.5 sacks. I mean, heck, he was Arizona's second best pass rusher. Another dude that just has a knack for the football. He finds the football. He is like a heat-seeking missile. And when he gets to the football, he makes the tackle. Football is he's just a very instinctual football player. It comes naturally for him. And honestly, he's just, like I said, he's a joy to watch. He's one of the best linebackers to ever come through here. And I think that as an Arizona fan, you should really enjoy him because, again, a lot of players like him don't really come through here a ton. He has very much of a Dick Tomey type feel to him where you just kind of know that he is like I said, he's just kind of a different player. Not only is he a different player, he is, he's the kind of guy that you win championships with. And obviously last year, I think the question was, could he make those tackles closer to the line of scrimmage? And that's exactly what he did. He came back with a lot less fanfare than his Servite buddies, but he's somebody that Arizona needs just as much on that defensive line or on that defense because he is the guy that kind of puts everything together. Just an absolutely fantastic football player. There's nothing really more you can say. Barring injury, he will be on that all Big 12 team. Then another one, too, is Tacario Davis. Tacario Davis, another player that you could make the case outside of T-Mac is the best NFL prospect on the team, along with Jonas Sabanea. 6'3", 6'4", can really move. I thought he was maybe going to have to play safety because, early on you kind of wondered, was he able to flip the hips, as they like to say, but he showed that he's that and more. He's also always kind of around the football. Now his hands aren't great, as any Arizona fan can attest. If you watch him, you know that, wish that you were able to pick off that pass because he dropped a lot of interceptions last year. He probably had 3 games where he dropped 3 interceptions, or 3 games. He had a game where he dropped 3 interceptions, and I want to say if he had held on to him, he could probably had 9 or 10. But either way, he's fantastic. He is an NFL prospect. He is a first-round type pick, and I got to give him a lot of credit. This is a dude that backed the A. He could have gone off anywhere he wanted, could have gotten paid a lot more. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people thought that he was going to probably go to Washington. He didn't do it. He entered the transfer portal, but he said, I'm going to give this coaching staff a chance, and that's exactly what he did. And this coaching staff obviously showed him enough to say, yeah, I want to be a Wildcat and, finish out my career here. And it's going to be fun to watch him because, again, he's another guy that you watch him and you're like, man, that's an NFL player. And again, as an Arizona fan, you're not really used to a lot of those type of players, but that's kind of where it's at. So, as far as guys, we got one more dark horse on the defense, so we're going to move over to basketball here in a second. But as far as guys that are on the defensive or on this team, you got to feel pretty good about Noah Fafita's chances, obviously, because of the numbers, because of how good he is, all of that stuff that he puts up. T-Mac, we don't even need to really talk about T-Mac. Jonas Sabanea is a first-round pick. We talked about how Wendell Moy could kind of be a wild card. Jacob Manu's numbers speak for themselves. I mean, you can watch Jacob Manu for 5 seconds and know that that's a little bit different. And on top of that, you've got Tacario Davis, going to be a first-round pick. And some of these mocks, you'll see him kind of around that 15 range. So those all make sense. And then the other one that you got to keep in mind, too, that I think is right there is Dalton Johnson. Dalton Johnson is just the epitome of solid, stabilizing force on the back end of the defense. He as a freshman, he probably should have played a lot more than he did. Christian Young was back there, and quite frankly, Christian Young wasn't very good. But with Dalton Johnson was he's always in the right place. He's probably an NFL prospect just because of his smarts and everything. I don't know that he is going to necessarily be a high pick, but man, Arizona is much, much better with him on the field. And I think that you're probably looking at him as being your third best defensive player, and maybe even more from that, because again, he's the quarterback of that secondary. He's a coach's delight. I know Dwayne Aquino loves him a great deal. And he's somebody that, again, I could see being kind of that outside of the box all-conference player. He's still got a couple more years. We'll see. But that's, Arizona's got a lot of dudes that could really contend for, a position. I'm a big fan of Malachi Riley, and I think he's going to have a breakout year. Now, again, that's going to, I don't think he's going to put up the numbers to be on there, but Arizona's got a lot of talent. Arizona should go into the Big 12 knowing that it can compete at the highest level immediately. And so and when it comes to the conference player of the year awards, I think Noah Fafita should be squarely in there as a conference offensive player of the year candidate because of the numbers that he's going to put up. I mean, you can watch him and that barring injury, like we said, I think it's probably fair to say that he's going to throw for 4,000 plus yards, 30 plus touchdowns. He's just got that kind of synergy. And if he doesn't, then you got some real questions about Dino Babers as an offensive coordinator. And then T-Mac, I think it's just hard for a wide receiver to win that award, but that goes without saying. And then defensively, Oklahoma State kid, his name escapes me. He's a monster, but Jacob Manu, I think Jacob Manu is going to put up numbers that are going to put him in consideration for some stuff. And so, again, Arizona, I think, is going to be very, very well represented on these Big 12 teams. And as far as national awards go, I think there's no reason that Fafita, again, maybe I'm being a homer, but I don't think that there's any reason that Fafita can't be a national player of the year type candidate because I think he's that good. T-Mac, I think, is about as good a receiver as there is in the country. As a matter of fact, I think he's the best receiver in the country. So there's just a lot to like about this team. And I think they are awesome money odds to win the conference. We'll see how that all plays out. But again, very, very excited about how all of this does play out for Arizona. Now, the next one that I think we have to look at is Arizona basketball. Now, Arizona basketball, the Big 12, I think it's very, very underrated in football. It's not underrated in basketball because everybody knows it's the best basketball conference in the nation. You're going to have 5 teams in the preseason top 10. And honestly, when you're Arizona and you're probably going to be preseason 5th in the conference and you're going to check in at 9 or 10 nationally, that just kind of goes to show you where it's at. Now, as far as players, then Caleb Love's obviously going to be at the top of that list. Caleb Love was a 3rd-team All-American this past year. He was the Pac-12 Player of the Year. Going into the Big 12, you're going to have a lot of expectations, but there's a lot of really, really good players, obviously, in the Big 12. I think with the first one is, you just look around. Obviously, Kansas, you've got a multitude of guys. You've got Hunter Dickinson. Obviously, you've got A.J. Storr coming in. Both those guys are going to have their opportunities. Baylor, you've got a massive recruiting class coming in. Iowa State returns everybody. Houston, obviously, you lose Jamal Shedd, but at the end of the day, you're still returning almost everybody. So that's good. But Caleb Love, I think, is going to have as good a chance as anybody. Now, I think that Caleb Love's numbers from a point perspective might be down a little bit, but I do think that he is someone who could be a little bit more efficient. I could see him averaging 17 points per game, but also shooting 45% from the field because he's getting to the free throw line more. Caleb Love, though, somebody to keep a very, very close eye on because I think you're going to see a more efficient Caleb Love. I know that, everybody was kind of bummed with how he finished the year last year, but I think you're going to see a better Caleb Love. At least I hope so. And that would be very, very nice. Now, we're going to talk about a couple other players here in just a second that I think are also very, very good when it comes to all of this. But first, why don't we talk about game time? Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, it's going to be difficult for me to get to some of these games. And you're probably right. And a big reason why is because there are fans at these games. It's not like when you're in the Pac-12 where you don't really know exactly you do know exactly what you're going to see, and it's going to be easy to get in. Game Time says we're here for you. Game Time says we can do this. You can get in here, and whether that's conferences, that's the tickets, whatever the case may be, that you will be good. And that's where I think it's very exciting if you're an Arizona fan because FanDuel is here for you. So again, check it out. Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, check it out. Game Time for concerts, for basketball tickets, you name it, they got it. Check it out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about KJ Lewis. I am much more bullish on KJ Lewis than many other folks are because I think KJ Lewis is going to put up some very, very nice numbers for the University of Arizona. I think he's going to be in that 14 to 15 point range, 4 to 5 rebounds, 3 assists. But I also think that he's going to be an all-conference defensive player. I think that he is going to be a difficult guy to leave off the all-conference team. Plus, I think he fits in very, very well from his defensive perspective, or from a, just from a playing style defensive perspective. I think KJ Lewis is going to be fantastic. And watching him, you also know that that I think he's just kind of a natural fit for what Arizona wants to do in the Big 12. I think his numbers are going to be a lot better than people think. I think a lot of people are thinking he's going to be 9 or 10 points. Well, that also is basically saying he's not going to improve at all because you got to figure that he's going to be playing 29 or 30 minutes per game. And if you extrapolate out that from the stats that he had, that would be exactly what it is. I think he's going to be a bigger focus, obviously, because Pelle Larsson's gone. You've also got Keishadu Marballo, leader of men, are out of there as well. Like I said, I like KJ a lot, and I think KJ is going to be on that all-defensive team, and I think he's going to be on the all-conference team. Now, a couple other guys I think to keep an eye on. I love Jaden Bradley to be on that all-conference team. I watched Jamal Shed, and I don't know why Jaden Bradley can't be that. Jaden Bradley is the best defensive player on the team, and, let's be honest. Tommy Lloyd should have played him a lot more last year. Kylan Boswell sucked. There's really no other way to put it out there, and he was obviously dealing with some other stuff. But Bradley, every time he came into the game, and especially against Clemson, whether he was getting getting blocks, steals, whatever the case may be, Jaden Bradley was right there. And I think when it comes to Jaden Bradley, you know what you're going to get defensively. And I think that's also going to set the tone for Tommy Lloyd. He's never really had a defensive point guard that could set the tone defensively. With Kylan Boswell, he couldn't do that. He was out of shape, for a variety of different reasons. Kirk Kriisa just physically couldn't do it. Jaden Bradley's that dude. And offensively, I think he's a lot better than people think. I think he's going to be a better shooter than people think. Again, I know he only took like 44 threes, but he's had like a 44% three-point percentage. That kind of stuff matters. That's, and his form is good. I think he's going to average about 12 points and 4 assists, but I think he's one thing that I feel very comfortable on is that he's going to be a stalwart on that all-defensive team as long as he is there. Awesome player to have in the Big 12. And then Trey Townsend, I think, is fascinating. Listen, I think he's going to get a lot of rebounds. And I think just by rebounds and points, I think he'll be in that 12 and 8 range. But I also think he's going to be a bigger facilitator than people think. He's a pretty naturally gifted passer, as we talked about. Somebody that got 6-7 assists in a couple different games this year, averaged 3.5. I don't see why he can't average 4.5 assists per game this season. As a matter of fact, I kind of think that he is. I think he's going to be a secondary facilitator. Again, I don't know that he's going to be all conference, just like with Jaden Bradley, but I think he's going to definitely let Big 12 people know who he is. And then when it comes to the conference player of the year, if there's going to be somebody that's going to compete for that, it's Caleb Love. He came back to, I think, prove a lot of things to people, and I think he's going to do just that. We will find out, but like I said, I'm very excited he's back, and I think that he's going to look to rectify, kind of that late season swoon that he had, and I expect him to be very impactful throughout the process. So either way, Arizona football and Arizona basketball figures to have a lot of players on these all Big 12 teams, and I think that's what's also very, very exciting about this. Now, we're going to be back with you tomorrow, talk some football, talk some basketball, talk some recruiting as well. As always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.